National Public Radio, NPR, where the news is what we say is the news. Welcome to the DJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show.
John, little do you know that when the clock rolls around to 7 o'clock, I get all excited because this is my best time of the day, and it goes downhill from here. I'm telling you. Hold on a minute.
It's a highlight of my day too, Brad. Thank you for expressing that.
I had the wrong button pushed. I'm sorry. Okay, you said what again now?
I said that I appreciate you expressing that, and it is a highlight of my day too. I would also like to thank you, Brad, for your patience yesterday when I was a little bit cranky. You know, I had the website issue for folks who didn't join us yesterday. About every 18 months or so, my website is down for a couple hours due to technical issues or server things. And I had a bug on my landing page yesterday. Right after we got off the air, Brad, by about 8:15, I had the website landing page was up and running. So thank you for your patience yesterday, Brad. I was a little crabby.
Well, John, no problem. And now I knew you were having a rough day yesterday. So what I'm going to do is we're going to deviate from our normal procedure. We're going to pick up your top three in about 70 seconds. But what I would like to do is I'm going to play something, and I know it's going to put you in a good mood. So we're going to erase what happened yesterday. Here's 60 seconds of Brad's mood changer for Tuesday. You ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go.
Bud Light presents Real Men of Genius.
Real men of genius.
Today we salute you, Mr. Giant Foam Finger Maker.
Mr. Giant Foam Finger Maker.
Without you, our teams would be in 6th or 7th place and feel as if they were in 6th or 7th place.
Can you feel it?
Carefully, you craft uncanny representations of actual human hands so that we may wave them annoyingly in the faces of our rivals.
In your face.
They're enormous, yes, yet one size fits all. Brilliant.
Raise them to the sky now.
So crack open a nice cold Bud Light, Mr. Foam Finger Maker, and know we speak for sports fans everywhere when we say, no, you're number one.
Giant Foam Finger Maker.
Bud Light Beer, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
John, how's that make you feel?
I love that. And I love that series, and it takes me back to the early 2000s, Brad. It's just majestic.
You know, what's so sad about that is, once again, they used that campaign for both Budweiser and Bud Light, but majority of the ads were for Bud Light. Okay, what the hell happened with their advertising when they go from those classic commercials like that? And there's a whole series of them. I think there's like 30 or 40 of those. Remember, we talked about it yesterday. The reason it was sort of top of mind awareness yesterday, you mentioned that about the whole situation with the Bud Light stuff and the fact that they changed the name of the campaign. The campaign started out as Real American Hero, and then we had 9/11, and they changed it because they didn't want to, downplay the fact that we had the firefighters and the police and the soldiers went off to war with Afghanistan and the whole bit, that they changed it to a Real American Genius. And I'm saying to myself, what happened with marketing where you had this incredible campaign, which if you put that on the radio today, it's 20 years old. It still sounds good, don't you think?
It sounds fantastic. I'm going to tell you what happened, Brad, and I'm going to use my National Public Radio voice for you.
Okay.
What happened is companies acknowledge the changing landscape, and they evolve in the face of dinosaurs like John Combest and Brad Hildebrand. And in fact, a much-needed evolution in industries is our number 3 story today.
Let's go. First off, you did a nice job on that. Now,
Thank you. You can call me Elaine if you'd like.
I've been hard at work for you, Ready, because guess what? That's John Combest, Combest. Every single day, he puts together a list of all the top things that are going on in the state of Missouri. Could be political events, could be news stories, could be, unfortunately, bad things. And occasionally he comes out with something good. He puts together in his site called johncombest.com, Combest. And today it's working as opposed to yesterday when the landing page was messed up. But he puts that up every single day, and we start to show off with the top 3. And we have a new top 3 intro. You ready?
No way! I'd love to hear it.
You ready? Here we go.
It's the John Cone Best Top 3. It's the John Cone Best Top 3. John Cone Best Top 3.
You like that one?
Oh, I get a little bit of Benedictine monks vibe, Brad. I love it.
And
I love it. It's very solemn, and it's very I feel very elevated, or as we would say on this show, I feel pedestalized.
Yeah, John's taught me all these terms like what is it? Monkey shield? Monkey shield, isn't that one of them?
Meat shield and monkey branching.
No, what is it? Is it beta shield? Beta, what is it?
Yeah, beta orbiters.
Okay. I can't get all those straight. Okay,
Yeah,
time
that's okay.
for our guy who comes in and does the intros for John.
We're on our way to the number one in third place.
Brad Hildebrand talks about what happened to the Budweiser commercials and the Bud Light commercials and the real marketing ideas. And we as those of us who are very high-minded and elite, we say, Brad, sometimes people evolve and sometimes society evolves. And that's the core of number 3. Because finally, thanks to some innovative people and some innovative regulators, you could call them real regulators of genius, Brad, people across America, especially in urban areas, will be breathing easier, Brad. Did you know, and let me introduce the bad guys in this story, Republican attorneys general around the state are opposing the Biden administration's mandate to turn trucks away from internal combustion engines. Can you believe, Brad Hildebrand, that in 2024 there are still trucks that are internal combustion engine? What do you have to say for yourself, Brad?
John, explain to me what's going on here. Okay, this is a new regulation that the government, the feds are trying to put in that would essentially make all trucks electric. Is that what you're saying?
From 2027 on, so to their line. And Brad, I went to the Biden-Harris, the official White House explanation of this, and several things are good here. I'll explain what it is. Essentially, by 2027, trucks must be the trucking industry must move away from internal combustion engines. Now, according to the Biden White House, quote, cars and truck manufacturers have made clear that the future of transportation is electric. And then the next paragraph starts, Brad, with, as a car enthusiast and self-proclaimed car guy, President Biden is seizing the moment. Now, Republican attorneys general, including Andrew Bailey, which is why this piece is up on my website today, and by the way, this piece is brought to us by the Associated Press, say the lawsuit is led by the attorney general from Nebraska. And you know what he says, Brad?
Balderdash, I hope, something like that, right?
He says that there are zero. He says there's not one truck charging station in the state of Nebraska.
Once again, I mean, you and I have talked about this time and time and time again. I mean, and the crazy part of this is, if you've ever traveled long distance and you see like the Loves and the Pilots and, the truck, once again, how in the world are they going to transition? And the point that I brought up all the time is, where are most of the truck stops? They're in the middle of nowhere, okay?
Yep.
Where do you have the least amount of electricity? In the middle of nowhere, right? I mean, matter of fact, there was a thing, and a lot of people don't understand this, and even some people in St. Charles County have Quiver River Electric Cooperative. Do you know the whole crazy thing with the electric cooperatives? You know how this thing came about?
I don't remember.
It was a law that was put into effect because most of the urbanized areas, the big cities, all have electricity. But once you got 30, 40, 50 miles outside of the urban core of most areas in our country, especially as you go, from the Midwest to the West, like especially, once you go further west of us, you get 30 or 40, 50 miles out of Kansas City in any direction, and there ain't nothing, and there was no electricity. So there was a special, matter of fact, there's the whole thing. You go down to Tennessee, there's what they call the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, which was essentially, the idea was there was government money behind electrifying rural America, and they essentially created this government system where there were essentially, payoffs, or not payoffs is a bad word, but in other words, they got the government helped the company put in. It's the exact same thing that's going on with broadband right now, is the fact that you and I can get fiber at our houses in most places in the St. Louis metro right now. But if you go out, like, for example, the crap transmitter site right there on Highway 47, a mile north of the Missouri River Bridge, I can't get any internet at all. I can't get anything. I don't.
That's amazing.
And I'm a mile outside of Washington, and that's what this whole thing is about. This is just crazy stuff. There's
a phrase that you'll appreciate, Brad. Maybe we need to add this to the lexicon on the Brad and John Show website. Is a phrase I read over the weekend, which is range anxiety. Journalists were talking about when you buy an electric vehicle. The phrase is range anxiety, because you want to go on a trip and you're like, ooh, if I'm driving through Louisville, where am I going to get? If I'm driving through Chattanooga, where am I gonna charge my electric vehicle? That causes range anxiety, Brad. Now, hopefully, as part of Biden's infrastructure spending, not only can we subsidize electric vehicles at a higher rate, but maybe we can get some treatment, some much needed treatment for range anxiety.
Well, okay, I'm going to throw out a weird thing, okay? And I do weird stuff, okay? Here's where you get these people that sit in these offices in D.C. and make these crazy, weird, things. This is going to happen. Go to a Quickie Mart. Let's take a quick trip or on-the-run store in here in St. Louis. Sit there for an hour. Sit there with a clipboard. Sit there with a stopwatch, and put yourself a piece of paper and write down. Let's say the location has 16 pumps. Okay, write down number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way through 16. Then sit there, and as the people pull up to like pump number 1, hit your stopwatch. When they show up, at that pump, hit your stopwatch. When they leave, hit your stopwatch. Okay, I think you will see most people are in and out of gas station in well under 10 minutes and sometimes under 5 minutes. Now, think about that when that same group of cars that comes into that gas station, but it's not a gas station anymore, it's a charging station. And instead of being in and out in 5 or 10 minutes, you have to spend an hour or 2 hours there. Guess what happens to that street running into that charging station? It backs up because nobody can get to the charging stations quick enough. It just doesn't make any sense.
And I agree, Brad, and that's why we need 4-day school week, so everybody gets an extra day to go charge their electric vehicle.
Oh, don't get me going on this. And the crazy thing about this is, to a certain extent, Elon Musk is to blame. He comes out with the 18-wheeler, he's got that thing. And once again, self-admitted, it'll only do 400 miles. And I've heard the truckers talk about, they can do 1,200 miles in a day easily. Man, I don't know. I'll just go off. I'll say this right now. We need a new president who doesn't have these goofy climate ideas, right?
Up a notch to number 2.
Number 2.
Commencement ceremonies, rallies, celebrations. Last week, Brad, we talked a little bit about how we anticipated, I'm using the royal we here, but I think you're involved too, how we anticipated that there would be some protests at WashU graduation. And indeed there were. But as it turns out, according to this Post-Dispatch piece, this is written by Daniel Neiman and Monica Obradovic. St. Louis Public Radio also has coverage of this as well. There were indeed protesters at WashU's commencement ceremony. It was held at Francis Field, which is, if you're driving on, I guess that would be, is that Whiteout? No, you're driving on Big Bend before you get to Forsyth in Clayton. You'll see that big old football field. That's Francis Field. And apparently outside of Francis Field, so I'm guessing right around Big Bend, there was a group of 50 protesters. According to the news reports, you could hear people chanting during the graduation ceremony. However, there was no violence. There were no SIUE professors slammed to the ground with broken ribs and such. The featured speaker, we've talked about this before, was a woman named Jennifer Coolidge, who was Stifler's mom in American Pie. She, according to the Post-Dispatch piece, she gave a talk about LGBTQIA rights and women's rights and climate change and reproductive rights. And I'm guessing, whatever else, the smorgasbord what old liberal women talk about. But apparently her speech went off without a hitch and there was no violence. So I guess that's good, Brad. And then I would also point to a piece that I have up today. I almost never reference anything that happens in Kansas because I don't care about Kansas. But the Kansas City Chiefs kicker, Harrison Butker, gave a speech
story
at Benedictine College,
yes, I heard
which is in Kansas, and he lambasted President Biden. So he talked about COVID lockdowns. He talked about the fact that Biden went to a pro-choice ceremony and did the sign of the cross. And I just think it's interesting that at some college commencements you might have a conservative speaker. So Brad, pretty good news for the WashU community that there wasn't a giant hubbub disrupting the commencement ceremony.
Did you hear part of the speech he gave?
I didn't.
He is really good. I mean, he's not I don't want, typify football players to be, hey, we went for the goal and we crossed the goal line and we scored.
Yeah.
It wasn't that kind of a deal. He's really good. This guy's got a career ahead of him after he gets out of football. I mean, he could be a politician. He could be like a minister kind of dude. Okay, we have to move along because we're running late. And let's do number one.
The number one.
Brad, quick answer. What do you get when you cross an Indian and a pirate?
Listener to Tracy Station?
You're dang close. You get really good bipartisan legislation. That's right. Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, has teamed up with Josh Hawley for what they're calling the Airport Gate Competition Act. And essentially what it does is it says that these large airlines cannot, let's use a marijuana term, they can't bogart a bunch of gates, that airports have to start letting smaller airlines get access to what I guess are called common use gates. Brad, you probably know way more about this than I do.
It gets real complicated. There's all sorts of crazy politics, and that's part of the reason, believe it or not, that's part of the reason they want to redo Lambert, because it's just, you don't fly that much anymore at all, do you, right?
And yeah, very, very little.
But once upon a time, you flew quite a bit, right?
Yeah, I flew quite a bit.
Right. Okay. What airline did you normally use out of St. Louis?
I'd fly usually American or Southwest, depending on where I was going.
Now, did you fly Southwest in the new terminal?
You mean Terminal 2?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll call the new terminal. They used to call the terminal East or the West East terminal.
Yeah, the Southwest terminal. Yeah.
Okay, and on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as ease of navigation and getting through that terminal and getting to your gate, what would you give it?
Oh, very easy.
But would you give it like a 9 or 8 or something like that?
Yeah. Let's call it a 9.
Okay, and to the point I always make, that if somebody drops you off at the departure gate or on the top part of the airport there, from the time you walk out of the car door, who's dropping you off, to the time you walk through the TSA line, and if you're lucky enough to be in like gates number 8, 9, 10, 11, which is right there as you come off at TSA, it's maybe, 200 feet?
Yeah, it's nothing. It's negligible.
Right. Well, not with the new terminal, because everything's going to have to go through. It's just like, if you've seen this new thing, it's like, okay.
I haven't looked at it.
It's just crazy time. I mean, I just don't understand. And not only that is they've got all these gates they don't even use anymore, I mean,
yeah.
Don't get me going about the airport thing. It's just so crazy. Every time I think of people that I know, Jack Klopnock, who's the super rich dude who used to work for me once upon a time, him and a bunch of guys. Matter of fact, even we talked about this, that our state senator, or not our state senator, a U.S. senator, Mr. Schmidt, used to live out there in Bridgeton.
Yeah.
And I think, didn't you say that his house was one of the houses that was torn down by the airport expansion?
I don't know, but he was familiar with the group that you referenced.
Yeah, Bridgeton Air Defense, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And the sad thing is, you can drive out there today, and those streets are still there. It's it's weird. It's all these residential areas. There's streets, no houses, they're all gone. They tore them all down. Now, the interesting part of that is, think about this, that if the city of St. Louis, who bought that property, owns that property now, they took that all over. If the city of St. Louis, if they still had those houses out there, we could be housing migrants.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could have like a little mini community out there.
And
I saw Schnucks is closing its Eat Well franchise. I don't know if you saw that, but they said that was a loss. So we could put some fresh organic food out there for the migrants that are coming in, Brad. We need to treat them as well as we treat the Palestinian protesters. Good organic food, give them some Uber Eats.
And by the way, going back to your previous thing, remember, I'm an ex-traffic reporter. Francis Field is on the corner of Forsyth and Big Bend.
And that's what I said, right?
No, you said something else. You said Big
No,
Bend.
I said, if you listen to the tape back, Brad, I said that it was at Big Bend and Forsyth.
Did you really?
I did.
Okay.
I spent about, 4 years at Washington University going to Francis Field every day. So, yeah, I'm pretty familiar with the area.
Do you know the history of Francis Field, don't you?
Yeah, it was from the Olympics, 1904.
Yeah, 1904. The first American Olympics, which is sort of interesting as well, too. Can you believe in 1904 we had the World's Fair and the Olympics in the same year?
Well, because there weren't any carjackings, that's why.
and
there were carriage-jackings, but no carjackings.
What I've heard, and tell me if I'm right, this is a rumor that I've heard. I've heard that there is a person who has sort of gone out of the public eye who is working very hard on getting resuming that tradition of the city of St. Louis having a World's Fair and an Olympics in the same year. And this person is working so hard, nobody can find her. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, her name's Kim.
Kim Gardner.
Desperately seeking Kim. But Mark McCloskey's on the case. Maybe we could call him for the third time in 5 days.
You're making fun of me now, aren't you?
I am making fun of you, Brad.
I tried to get Bill Eigel, but you know what? It's funny. Here, we're running late. We'll start off by talking about Bill Eigel the next break, okay?
Great, all right.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?